Whenever I start playing a brand new game, especially if it's a game that has builds, all I want to know right off the bat is what is the single best build, or maybe the best overall build, so that I have a few options and I can make my own decision. When it comes to Destiny, I know most of the best builds in the game, so in this video, I thought it'd be a great idea to go over the 3 best builds in the entire game, 1 for each class. If you're watching this video and you're newer to Destiny, this video is going to be a super quick watch which goes over 3 of the best builds in the entire game and also gives you an idea of how each class plays. And if you guys are Destiny veterans, let me know if you agree or disagree with the list in the comments down below. Starting things off for Warlocks, arguably one of the hardest things to deal with in Destiny is damage. Raids and dungeons can have some pretty tanky bosses, and if you're new or playing with newer players, chances are sometimes you need to make up for somebody else who might not be dealing the most damage, which is where this build is perfect, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. The Warlock Strand DPS build specializes in having the most optimal damage rotation in the game, which works in any situation. I honestly don't think there is a boss currently in the game that this does not work for. Overall, you have an extremely high burst damage super that hits for almost 500,000 on its own. Then using your grenades reloads your currently equipped weapon, dealing damage builds your next grenade super quickly, and whenever you're on grapple grenades, you can use this at the ground for a super quick reload, which always gives half your grenade right back. Hopping into the Strand subclass on Warlock, our only super option is Needle Storm, but this does a ton of damage, which is why we're running this. After that, you do want to make sure you're on grapple grenades because these have the quickest cooldown and give 50% back, as you're going to see in the damage rotation. Aspect-wise, I run Weaver's Call and the Wanderer, but these don't really have an impact on the build. And then mainly for your fragments, you do want Thread of Ascent so that you can use your grenade to actually reload your currently equipped weapon. Thread of Generation so that more damage builds your grenades quicker. And then lastly, we do use Thread of Evolution because this does increase the damage of our Needlestorm super by a slight bit. Other than that, you do want to also focus on your weapon choices and your mod setup. I like running Cartesian Coordinate, which is a rapid fire solar fusion. This has lead from gold and Vorpal to increase its ammo economy and its damage. But more important than that is going to be your heavy weapon. I like Apex Predator, and you do want a reconstruction and bait and switch roll on this for the better option for your damage rotation. After that, exotic-wise, I do like running Necrotic Grips, but these don't have a major impact on the build. What is much more important, on the other hand, is going to be your Surge mods. If we go over here to see all of our mods right now, I'm running 3 copies of Solar Weapon Surges, which is really good for a damage rotation because I am pairing this again with 2 solar weapons. So all in all, I'm getting a 22% increase in our solar weapon damage through these surges. I'm using 2 solar weapons, and anytime I can use the rotation properly, I can easily get off a reload with my rocket by using a grapple. On screen right now is a quick overview of everything you want on your build. As always though, I will have full build videos and dim links below for you guys to easily apply the build yourself. Moving on to Strand Titans, this is in my opinion the best build in the entire game right now, and it's not even close. So I'm going to give this build a 9.9 out of 10 overall. It would have been a 10 out of 10, but it did recently get a decent nerf, so 9.9 feels right because the build is still insane. With the new Banner of War aspect on Strand, you roam around with an aura that constantly heals you and your team, and you also get 40% increased melee damage. The exotic arms Synthoceps give plus 200% increased melee damage, a 1-2 punch shotgun gives another 75%, and tractor cannon gives 30% on top of that. So just your base melee abilities alone hit extremely hard, and we're also getting 3 charges to use as well. The mid game is also extremely strong. You're constantly making tangles, which can be then used to get melee energy back, and you get higher melee regen whenever you have Woven Mail on, which also offers 55% damage resistance against everything. Lastly, for bosses, you can use your melees, then when your super ends, you do get 3 more melee charges to use, so your damage is insane, allowing you to one phase every single boss in the game with just abilities. So I think it's pretty fair to label this as the best build in the entire game. Within the Strand subclass layout, you do obviously want to make sure you're on Blade Fury. Right now, it's the only option, but this is really good for total damage output and DPS. And as you've seen, we can use 3 melees, then our super, then come out and have 3 more melees ready to go. For our actual melee ability, once again, the only option is Frenzied Blade, but this is incredible because we get 3 charges. It's extremely quick to use. It also makes things like tangles for us, and we can damage stack effectively while using this melee. When it comes to your aspects, make sure you're running Into the Fray for increased melee regen, and then more important than that is going to be Banner of War. This is that aura that gives us the constant healing to ourselves and teammates, along with that 40% increase in our melee damage. Lastly, for your fragments, you do want to make sure you're running Thread of Wording. Anytime we pick up an Orb of Power, this gives Woven Mail, and we need Woven Mail with Into the Fray to get that increased melee regen. And then after that, for even more melee charges back, we have Thread of Fury, so that damaging enemies with a Tangle gives melee energy directly for our next melee charge. For the rest of the build, you do want to make sure you're on a 1-2 punch shotgun. After this, you want to make sure you have Synthoceps on. With Synthoceps, that's that 200% increased melee damage whenever we're surrounded by 3 or more enemies within like 8 to 15 meters. And then lastly, even though you don't need it directly, someone on your team wants to be applying a 30% debuff to optimize your damage, which can easily be done with this build using Tractor Cannon. And then after this, you're going to notice that a lot of our mods are just melee based. We do have hands-on on our helmet to give increased super energy when we get melee final blows. We have heavy-handed so that we gen orbs when we get charged melee final blows, and then focusing strike so we get class ability energy whenever we deal melee damage. We do also have invigoration, so orbs of power give us 10% of our next melee charge or around there, and then outreach so that anytime we use our class ability, we also get melee charges back. So this really is just used so that we can optimize how often we have our frenzied blade up to do more damage and get off our damage stacking through things like 1-2 punch and then a Syntho melee, which hits extremely hard. Just like last time, this is everything you guys want on for your build, including all of the subclass items and the armor mods as well. Last up for hunters, I also felt like solar was too strong not to showcase here. So for this final build, we have the Foetracer DPS setup, which I think is an 8.5 out of 10. It's crazy strong, but there are definitely areas where the build can feel a bit unoptimized. With Foetracer equipped, anytime you tag a powerful combatant with an ability, you're getting surges that match your ability damage type for 10 seconds. When on solar, having nearly infinite throwing knives means we can always tag up majors, champions, mini bosses, or good old bosses when in a DPS phase. And the surges we get, which will also be on solar, not only give ×4, which is 25% more damage, but they do also allow us to run additional surge mods so we can get surges for 2 different damage types. Solar weapons also happen to be extremely strong right now, and we can utilize Monochromatic Maestro in the artifact for even more damage. So overall, this is one of the best builds for damage rotations currently in the game. I do think there are certainly areas where the exotic lacks, and it can require a bit of a riskier playstyle to pull off, meaning it might not work everywhere, and it also isn't the easiest to use either. For this final hunter build on solar, you pretty much want to have everything that I'm running on this subclass setup. Blade Barrage is great for burst damage. We're using Gambler's Dodge because we are going to be using our melee against enemies that are tankier, which means we're not going to get a kill and get them right back. So we can use our melee and then dodge to get our melee immediately back that way rather than relying on kills. The best melee, in my opinion, is going to be Knife Trick. And then after that, I do tend to use Healing Grenade so that I have some decent survivability with this build. Aspect wise, we're using Knock 'em Down. Mainly, as I mentioned, whenever we're Radiant and we get a Knife Final Blow, that infinitely returns our melee, so we can keep using our melee and spamming it as long as we're getting those kills. And then on your mark, increases, I think, our reload speed and our handling, which makes the build feel really snappy, and also, most importantly, gives us 3 extra fragment slots. For our fragments, Singeing makes it so that Scorched Final Blows give class ability energy back. Solace makes Radiant and Restoration last longer. Torches makes our melee make us Radiant and teammates that are nearby. And then great for this build is Ember of Empyrean. This is extremely solar based, and as we're getting Radiant and Restoration effects, as we keep getting solar ability or weapon final blows, this extends those effects infinitely as long as there's more enemies to kill. Lastly, I do like running Ember of Benevolence, so if we do use our melee on a tankier enemy while teammates are nearby, this regen, combined with the Singeing regen, pretty much guarantees a full Gambler's Dodge straight back. So we can use this effectively, never getting kills, just hitting tankier enemies, and getting a full dodge charge back in like 2 to 3 seconds, and cycling that way instead. After that, for the build, obviously we are on Foetracer. Taking a look at this, once again, damaging any powerful combatant is going to mark them and then give us a bonus to our weapon damage for 10 seconds. That's going to be 25% increased solar damage in this case, which makes it really optimal to run something like an Apex Predator or even maybe a Xenophage. Any solar heavy weapon is going to deal a ton of extra damage. And then the nice part about this build is, as you're going to see, I do run, in this case, 1 copy of kinetic weapon surges on my boots, and that's going to allow my kinetic weapon or any other weapon I choose to run with the build also deal increased damage, which is really good for DPS rotations. Here is the last loadout set with everything needed for the build. Mod-wise, you mostly want to swap around your surges and then keep on heavy-handed for orb generation. That is it for the video and for all the builds. Let me know which build looks best to you if you're a new player, and if you're a Destiny veteran, let me know if you think any other builds should be on the list instead of the ones that I chose. I do have some really good builds that I ended up showing in previous seasons, so I do try to change up the builds in these videos a bit here and there, so do keep that in mind. I do also stream a bunch over on my Twitch as well. If you guys do ever want to come over there, hang out in game, a link to my Twitch is in the description down below. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.